Trace your finger around the very bottom of the African continent like this. Seems like a simple task, right? But in real life, out on the ocean, it's basically the nautical version of entering hard mode in a game. Except you can't rage quit. Every sailor who has ever faced it knew they were in for a storm buffet, unpredictable currents, and a constant sense that the ocean was out to get them. The legendary Cape of Good Hope has a misleadingly cheerful name and a way less cheerful reputation. What do you think? Why give such a dangerous place such a hopeful name? The story starts back in 1488 with Portuguese explorer Bartholomew Diaz. He was the first European to make it around the tip of Africa. When he saw the terrifying storms tossing his ships, he named it the Cape of Storms. But his king, John II of Portugal, decided to rebrand it to the sunnier Cape of Good Hope. Yeah, he wanted to promote it as an optimistic route for merchants and explorers. Plus, the discovery was a good omen that ships from Europe could reach India by sea. But the sailors who actually had to steer through it soon lost all the optimism the name promised. The Cape sits where the Atlantic Ocean and Indian Ocean meet violently. And the winds there are brutal. They don't just blow in one direction. They flip around like the world's worst fan setting. In the southern hemisphere winter, June to August, cold fronts from the Atlantic blast through with violent storms. Add some rain, fog, huge waves, or all of the above. If you were a sailor back then, your odds of survival felt closer to winning a chest of gold in some 16th century lottery than actually getting through in one piece. Be honest, would you dare to cross this place on a wooden ship back in the 1500s? And then there are the currents. The cold Benguela current from the Atlantic slams into the warm Agulhas current from the Indian Ocean. Instead of blending nicely like a smoothie, they turn up massive chaos and produce rogue waves that can rise higher than a 10-story building. Sailors describe them as walls of water that just show up to ruin your day. With modern equipment, you can survive if you meet them, or better avoid them. But back in the 1500s, when your technology was a wooden ship and a prayer, one rogue wave could wipe out your entire voyage. And as if the Cape of Good Hope wasn't enough drama. A few miles east, there's the even nastier Cape Agulhas. This spot is the southernmost point of Africa, where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans officially meet. Cape Agulhas has shallow waters with reefs, hidden rocks, and sneaky sandbars that shift around. For centuries, sailors called it a ship graveyard. Historians have counted hundreds of wrecks here, including ships loaded with gold, porcelain, and spices that never reached Europe. The bones of ships still lie under those waves, like a giant warning sign saying, "Don't even try it." Imagine seeing wreck after wreck below your ship. What would you be thinking in that moment? Now, if we zoom out to show the broader history, the stats are brutal. Between the 15th and 18th centuries during the Age of Sail, so many ships sank here that European traders treated the Cape like a terrifying game of odds. You could make a fortune bringing back silk, spices, and jewels from Asia, or you could vanish into the ocean. That's why sailors pass down horror stories like campfire tales, ghost ships haunting the Cape, cursed waters, and there was also the famous legend of the Flying Dutchman doomed to sail around the Cape forever. Do you believe these ghost ship stories were based on real sightings, or just legends sailors told each other? Navigating all this before GPS, satellites, or weather forecasts in a creaky wooden ship with no compass and some half-reliable maps was almost impossible. With no ports nearby to duck into for shelter, the sailors were all alone out there, sort of like playing hide-and-seek in a thunderstorm while blindfolded. Historians note that many of these brave folks regularly got blown off course or smashed into rocks they didn't even know existed. So eventually someone came up with a better idea. Let's dig a shortcut. In 1869, the Suez Canal opened in Egypt. It connected the Mediterranean to the Red Sea. Ships traveling between Europe and Asia didn't have to play the Cape Stormy lottery anymore. Using the canal reduced the voyage from the Arabian Sea to London by some $5,500 mem. Today, the canal handles 12 to 15% of global trade. That means millions of containers, tankers, and cargo ships take the safe shortcut instead of risking the so-called Cape of Storms. If you were a sailor back then, would you have dared the Cape? Or waited for the Suez Canal? Now there's another less famous danger zone too. Cape Corrientes in Mozambique. Portuguese sailors dreaded it in the 1500s and called it a ship-eating monster. Its name literally means Cape of Currents because the water there rushes with insane force strong enough to throw ships off course and onto the shore. Historians estimate that up to 30% of Portuguese ships sailing the India route were lost there. So even before they reached the Cape of Good Hope, they could already be sinking. Now, let's not forget the economics. Sailing around Africa wasn't just risky, it was expensive. More days at sea meant more food, more water, and more exhausted crews. Losing ships to storms was costing millions of dollars in today's money. Insurance companies dreaded covering voyages around the Cape because the odds of having to pay out a claim were so bad. When the Suez Canal opened, it wasn't just about saving time. It was about cutting the cost of disasters. Even today, with modern radar, weather forecasts, and GPS, rounding the Cape isn't a walk in the park. Of course not. It's water. Anyways, cargo ships that try to avoid canal fees or blockages, like the infamous traffic jam in 2021, still face monster waves and storms. Technology can predict the weather, but it can't stop the ocean from throwing a tantrum. Every captain who rounds the Cape today still knows they're passing through one of the most dangerous maritime zones on Earth. Yet another zone most ship captains choose to avoid is the roaring 40s and furious 50s in the Southern Ocean. That's between 40 and 50 degrees south latitude. Unlike the Northern Hemisphere, where continents break the flow, down here, there's nothing but ocean. It's an endless highway for storms with no speed limit. Sailors gave this zone its dramatic nickname because when you're here, the wind doesn't whisper, it screams. Scientists have confirmed that these roaring winds can hit speeds up to 125 mph. And screaming winds mean screaming seas. Waves in the roaring 40s can reach heights that make skyscrapers jealous, smashing against ship hulls with the force of a battering ram. Historically, clipper ships braved these waters to shave time off their voyages between Europe and Asia. But they paid the price with torn sails, broken masts, and sometimes entire crews swallowed whole by the sea. Even today, modern vessels avoid the 40s unless they have no choice. There are safer paths, routes that might take longer, but aren't this risky? Would you risk it for a faster trip? Or take the longer, but safer route? The 40s and 50s sure sound scary, but wait until the ocean tightens its grip in the Drake Passage. This narrow strip of water between Cape Horn and Antarctica is the gladiator arena of the seas. The entire Pacific Ocean is trying to squeeze through a gap only 500 millimeters wide and collides head-on with the Atlantic. Add the Southern Ocean currents, among the strongest on Earth, and you've got a recipe for chaos. The Drake doesn't just throw waves at you, it throws walls of water up to 50 ft high. Ships here don't ride the ocean, they cling to survival like toys tossed in a washing machine on the highest spin cycle. The reason it's so brutal is pure physics. With no land masses in the Southern Ocean to slow down wind or current, the Antarctic circumpolar current races around the globe. When it slams through the narrow funnel of the Drake, it accelerates like a jet engine. Storms roll in uninvited, and icebergs drift lazily into shipping lanes, ready to take a ship down any moment. Even experienced sailors describe the Drake as unpredictable. It's calm one moment, chaos the next. Historians note that before the Panama Canal opened in 1914, every ship heading from the Atlantic to the Pacific had to pass through here, and countless ones never made it. Today, cruise liners and research ships still brave the passage to reach Antarctica, but with enough seasickness bags to remind passengers that they're not on a pleasure cruise. They're crossing one of the most dangerous ocean stretches on the planet. That's it for today. Now you tell me, which of these deadly sea routes do you think is the most terrifying? The Cape of Good Hope, Cape Horn, or the Drake Passage? Drop your answer in the comments. And hey, if you made it this far and learned something new, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more epic ocean stories, and share this video with your friends.